In this presentation, you will learn about post-structuralism. Post-structuralism can be linked to a series of observations, expansions, and critiques of structuralism that originated in the mid-1960s, mostly in France. Post-structuralism does not support a total rejection of structuralism's ideas and arguments. Rather, post-structuralist philosophy is best seen as a follow-up to Ferdinand de Saussure and Claude Lévi-Strauss's structuralist works. It is most commonly associated with philosophers like Roland Barthes, Hélène Gueux, Gilles Deleuze, Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, Luc Irigaray, Julia Kristeva, and Richard Rorty. However, few of these theorists use the word to describe their work. Post-structuralism is generally known for its critiques on humanism, existentialism, and foundationalism. It also attempts to reject the idea of the search for absolute meanings and law-like generalizations. It also has a negative view of modernity. Structuralism, as shown in the linguistics of Ferdinand de Saussure, the anthropology of Claude Lévi-Strauss, and the early literary theory of Roland Barthes, tries to create a theoretical tool that would become a foundation for rigorous analysis and research in social sciences. To understand post-structuralism, firstly, we need to learn about structuralism. Structuralism has four basic beliefs. It rejects the argument that all meanings, practices, and actions can be understood and forced by subjective consciousness. Structuralism believes that meanings, practices, and actions can be explained only by studying the relations among elements in structures or systems. Structuralism views the binary opposition as the key to understanding structural relationships among elements. And finally, structuralists tend to be concerned mainly with synchronic analysis, which is studying the relations among elements of a structure at the moment in time. Critique of structuralism as expressed by Derrida. Two main theorists are associated with post-structuralism, Derrida and Foucault. Post-structuralists generally agree with the first point, but for various reasons they reject the others. The work of Jacques Derrida and Michel Foucault best explains the post-structuralist critique of structuralism. Derrida argues that the structuralist view of language as a stable system can be studied, though there are certain assumptions. The most problematic of these assumptions is what Derrida calls logocentrism, which is a problematic assumption of most Western thought. Logocentrism is a term that describes the tendency of Western thinkers to privilege one term in a binary opposition over the other term, thus creating a hierarchy that organizes thought. This hierarchy then appears to be a stable and natural one with its roots in a stable language system and its elements. Derrida tries to question these hierarchical relationships by showing that binary oppositions that are often contradictory interpret the binary as useless for descriptive or epistemological purposes. In addition, the two terms of a binary opposition define themselves against each other, and any hierarchy is therefore merely arbitrary. Derrida's project can be described as the deconstruction of logocentrism, which involves breaking down how logocentrism operates to break its hegemony in Western society. In short, Derrida aims for the supposed stability of language and how structuralists build binary oppositions. Let us take a simple example to understand this. Structuralists view things from binary like black, white, earth, sky. However, post-structuralists like Derrida question this aspect. The term white is seen as the white race and black is seen as lower in the hierarchy. So, this invisible dimension of hierarchy is what is seen as problematic by post-structuralists. Critique of structuralism as expressed by Foucault. Foucault uses the structuralist approach to Foucault's early work on the archaeology of knowledge, the order of things. In The Death of Man, Foucault points out that structuralism helps social science to think about phenomena of life, language, and labor without dealing much with the subjectivity aspect. Foucault's archaeology of knowledge also shows the early influence of structuralism in his work as it represents a search for the rules that govern. While Foucault's The Other of Things and other archaeological works use structuralist methods, it also highlights the limitations of structuralist thought. Genealogy of power. According to Foucault, the most important critique of structuralism is its inability to explain how systems and structures change over time. Foucault considered himself a historian of systems of thought, and as a historian, he was interested in how systems and structures change. At the same time, structuralism limits itself to studying the relations among elements of structures in a synchronic way, that is, at one moment at a given time. To ask and answer questions about historical change, Foucault began to develop a method of inquiry known as the genealogy of power, shown in his book Discipline and Punishes. By using a genealogical method, he provides a way to approach historical problematizations of knowledge and governing. A genealogical method, according to Foucault, studies events but not the events of traditional political history or the history of great men. Rather, genealogy may take the formation and articulation of a problem. Genealogy focuses on problems to study the heterogeneous lines of descent that form collections of practices, the multitude of problematizing discourses that such practices generate, and the regimes of truth that these practices and problematizing discourses instantiate. In addition, Foucault categorized the genealogy of power as a history of the present. This does not, however, suggest that the present is a necessary outcome of past historical events. Instead, it tries to use history to understand the present and demonstrate the happening of an event. The genealogy of power is therefore often viewed as a form of social criticism. Foucault's genealogy of power notes that power and knowledge are inseparably linked. This is known as the power or knowledge connection. Critical to Foucault's genealogy is the argument that power is a source of dynamism that is productive and spreads throughout society into many local centers. Through this lens of power, Foucault traces how early modern European states responded to such problems of governing as criminality, the practices of punishment and social control that emerged as ways of dealing with criminality, and the bodies of knowledge. Foucault adds that while power is universal, it always meets some form of resistance. While Foucault's genealogy of power does not indict bodies of knowledge that emerge from practices of power as false or invalid, it challenges scholars and practitioners to consider alternative practices and discourses to counter the established regimes of truth and practice. Thank you for watching the presentation. Do like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments about this presentation or any other topic you would like to learn more about.